Oh, look at that. Oh, it's when doing framework. Ooh. I kind of want to watch the video shitting on UE5. It's been a while since we watched a video from Thread Interactive shitting on UE5. I still remember when someone joined my Discord to tell me how Thread Interactive is a horrible person, how you shouldn't watch his videos. It was some like UE5, it was some guy from like the UE5 subreddit who got very angry that this guy exists. So this is about my best game of the year, Expedition 33. Now, Expedition 33, from my experience, is probably one of the least problematic UE5 games. He's gonna go hard on it because he hates UE5 a lot. But of the continuum of UE5 games, it's so much better than fucking whatever the mess that Wukong was. Wukong is very, very unplayable. It's like there's so many areas in Wukong where the frame rate just dips to hell. Kazan has a lot of stuttering issues. Woowa, I don't know about. I'm not a Woowa fan. Wu Chang also runs like arse. Monster Hunter sorry, Monster Hunter's RE engine. Sorry, my bad. That's a different shit engine. I'm getting my shit engines confused. But no, this is probably one of the least bad UE5 messes, but it's still not perfect. And anyone who says it is perfect either is running some like crazy overpowered system or is coping. I've played through the entire game. Let me fucking bring up the thing. Where's my Steam? Where's my no, it's a browser. Where's my Steam? Steam, where the fuck is my Steam window? There it is. Okay. Expedition 33. I played 70 hours of this game. It's a great game. But it can get a little stuttery in certain places. And there's a lot of other weird UE5-isms about it. Is Unity a good engine? Any engine is a good engine if the developer knows how to use it. The problem is a lot of developers don't know how to use UE5, and then you get Wukong, and then you get all of the other messy games.
People are so starved for unique gameplay and so mentally exhausted.
Are you on a fucking... How far away are you from your mic? Rivals has some stuttering issues. It's not as bad, but it does have some stuttering issues.
By overmilked IPs, that they are literally gaslighting themselves and others into thinking that Claire Obscure Expedition 33 is some kind of showcase of how to use Unreal Engine 5 the right way.
Is he using like a Shure SM7B as a fucking boom? Why is he so echoey?
Claire Obscure E33 is not a
Are
technical
all of his
masterpiece.
videos like this? I haven't watched one in a while.
UE5 disaster. Even with settings that are fairly optimized and based on the PS5 performance configuration, the game can't even hit 60 FPS at native 1080p on a desktop 3060. But it wouldn't matter if it could...
Desktop 3060. Okay, wait, what was his settings? Let's have a look. What is he running?
Settings that are fairly optimized and based on the
motion blur.
PS5 performance configuration, the game can't even hit 60 FPS at native 1080p on a desktop 3060. But it wouldn't matter if it could hit 90 FPS, because this game is one of the ugliest games I have ever laid my eyes on.
Again, he does not like UE5. I think this game looks amazing. He's gonna talk a lot, like the bit I watched, he's gonna talk a lot about the UE5-isms that the game has. Some of the weird rendering issues this engine consistently has.
Maxing out the graphic settings drops the performance to around 35 frames per second.
I think the funny thing with a lot of these games, whether it be like any UE5 game or RE Engine game, a lot of the time they don't look that much better going from epic to low. Like, I played Wukong for the most part on low settings. I turned it up to the highest settings and it looked basically identical. So I don't actually know what the engine's doing behind the scenes.
But even then, shadows are noisy.
Yeah, that is certainly a common UE5
around 35 frames per second. But even then, shadows are noisy.
Max settings TSR. Yeah, here you go. Here's your fun, noisy UE5 shadows. This is a problem that we have with a lot of games now, where we're not... As games want to show realistic shadows, when you're doing live rendering of realistic shadows, then you have to deal with live rendering artifacts if you want to do any sort of rendering that works at real time. Yeah. Yeah, this is this is a problem with the direction the game industry's kind of gone.
Inconsistent and sometimes non-existent. Meanwhile,
missing foliage shadows. Missing local light shadows. Okay.
while older games that
See, I didn't notice any of this as I was going through because I was so focused on how gorgeous this game is. Because you can say it has a lot of these UE5isms, and it absolutely does. At the same time, this game has a phenomenal art style. So even if technically it's a mess, artistically it still looks amazing. Watch Witcher 4 run like shit. It's gonna be so fucking funny when that game comes out and it runs like ass. I'm going to laugh for days.
Look and run better can handle several shadows without issues because of caching, or because their geometry is actually optimized. Epic TSR is the only true...
Well, it's not that he likes hyper-realistic graphics, it's that he is very sensitive to the UE5isms, the rendering artifacts and shadows and things like that. Most people ignore them at this point.
Hardware agnostic AA option that keeps motion halfway decent, but it costs 3.5 milliseconds to run. That's 7 times slower than the crisp SMA TX2 from modded CryEngine. And it still has a hideous fizzling problem. This game also perfectly illustrates how fundamentally broken Lumen is. It smears particles with trailing artifacts, smears light across the main character's face in unnatural ways, and loses all sense of environmental stability when anything...
Are we running on lowest settings here? I think this is definitely lowest settings.
Character's face in unnatural ways, and
I think this is also upscale.
Loses all sense of environmental stability when anything starts moving. Natural ways.
Yeah, this is actually a prime example. Like, if you play an older game on low settings, like, look at these shadows back here. This is not, like...
with trailing artifacts.
I think the main problem that UE5 has is UE5 looks amazing on... Like, it looks amazing on the highest settings. It's hard to tell the difference, but if you, like, start pixel peeping, it looks amazing. But when you turn it down, I think UE5 tends to struggle, at least the way most devs seem to be using it, it tends to struggle scaling down, right? UE5 is really popular in movie creation, and in movie creation, it makes a lot of sense, because you're rendering at the highest level possible at every single occasion. But games, you want to be able to bring between these different points. And I have never seen a game developer, like, use UE5 to scale down to lower hardware and not start introducing issues like this. Yeah, and this is why I'm so happy that games like Lost Soul Aside are a UE4 game. I kind of hope we can just move past this engine as quickly as possible and no longer have to deal with this. Also, I love that the it looks so bad right now that it looks like the chair's dithered.
Light across the main character's face in unnatural ways, and loses all sense of environmental stability when anything starts moving. Heck, it can't even resolve under a still camera. And like many other games that obliterate performance with nanite over the guise of no LED pop and infinite detail that ends up as horrible subpixel aliasing,
yeah, the opening segment here is a little stuttery.
Are still stuck with Unreal's incompetent LED transitions. Then to top it all off, the devs force an extreme sharpener to further murder image quality. Now we've already broken down the UE5 pipeline in past videos, and we don't want to waste time repeating all that here. E33 only uses a slightly newer UE5 version than Oblivion, so for this video we're going to focus on the key differences. specifically what the devs
UE5 is so heavily relying on upscaling is also an issue. Scaling to lower hardware or scaling down render resolution is bound to introduce issues. Yes.
tried to do to squeeze slightly better performance out of a Lumen and Nanite production. Because what the devs did needs to be mentioned when the entire sea of content creators and complacent blind devs are hyping this game as some kind of ray-traced optimized showcase. Then, I'm also going to use this game to show how backwards and senseless Epic Games' development philosophy is, and why being aware of these issues can lead to changes inside Unreal. Now let's discuss Lumen first. Performance is very dependent on async compute, and the developers calculate Lumen at a much lower pixel resolution than recommended. On high, it's set to 128. For reference, Unreal's high scalability usually sets this value at 32, and the Epic scalability uses 16. The lower the value, the more expensive and accurate Lumen becomes. The developers also excluded all objects that were not major occluders from the Lumen scene. And as you can see, the developers used software tracing via SDFs. Level 1 Text was recently spewing marketing lies to pretend that NVIDIA's hardware ray tracing was a good thing.
Why do you hide the Level 1 Text logo?
By using this game as an example.
Is ray tracing making game development better? We think it is. I'm sure it's making game development better. I don't think it's making the games better. I am very openly a ray tracing hater in games. I am sick of seeing it.
They were not aware that this game is actually using software tracing, which means no hardware RT is required. Now real quick, let's talk about Threat Interactive's stance on reflections. Now we've stated that cube maps should be replaced.
So Lumen is so expensive they had to configure it at a lower precision, basically. Yeah, that's effectively what he's saying.
Ray trace reflections. But with our use case and our internal cinematography analysis, we can define a clear direction we want to push towards. So here's how we think the reflections should be approached. Basic world occlusion from the atmosphere is the most important part. Big chunky assets like dumpsters, cars, buildings, and mailboxes should be represented in world space. We might be able to save performance by skipping the color evaluation of whatever portions are not in direct lighting, because directly lit portions of objects and reflections siphon the eye's attention. This is why emissive objects need world space representation even if they're small. World space geometry needs to be simple. Simpler than AC Shadow's approach and closer to Crysis Remastered on 8th gen consoles, but with vertex color data instead of textured geometry. These simplified world objects should be baked into larger structures to avoid overwhelming the GPU with heavily instance-based data. But dynamic objects like doors and cars should still retain individual structures. To save even more performance, trace at a half resolution and use screen space reflections first.
Oh, we're talking about NFS 2015 before. This game looks fucking phenomenal. I don't want to play it because as much as I would love to play NFS 2015, it is the only Need for Speed game that is always online. Why? Please fix. There is no reason for it. It was released during that era where games were just being always online for no reason. Great. It was fun.
Are, of course, that looks and performs as well as modded Need for Speed 2015. Hopefully we can trace in software so more GPUs can be supported. And
it's still from the patched out. You say that, but it's still selling incredibly well. And they've shut down games, like the multiplayer for games around it, and still haven't touched 2015. So it's they very well might. I hope they patch it. I really do.
Our studio from playing into NVIDIA's manipulative hardware RT market. This is the direction we want to take our game. And because our
2015 is just that good scenario, from what I'm hearing.
Studios can and should adopt reflection technologies that align with what we're discussing here. Now let's discuss how this game handles geometry and nanite. Nanite forces a full depth prepass on non-nanite geometry due to culling dependencies. The GPU then uses mesh and compute shaders to process nanite's cluster culling logic. That logic alone takes around 2 milliseconds. Maybe this is done in async, but that's doubtful. Then nanite's software rasterizer kicks in, writing the first batch of micropolygons at double our recommended prepass budget. Then the next objects rasterized have noticeably more intricate materials assigned to them. Then slow textured geometry is rasterized. The VisBuffer prepass takes around 4 milliseconds. That's like rendering Need for Speed 2015's geometry in decompass twice.
You know what? Since you keep mentioning it, let me just show you Let me just show you NFS 2015. NFS 2015 gameplay. Now, okay, handling may not have been amazing in the game. What's a good example? Here we go. Ultra settings.
Let's do this.
Shut up. I can't play the music because it's Need for Speed, and that's hyper copyright music. Like, look at this game. This came out 10 years ago. This is a decade old. Now, the game doesn't... So, 2015 does a lot of fun things to hide it being a 10-year-old game. Firstly, the city you see in the background every so often isn't real. There is no city. So this city, like all this here, that's fake. Also, it's raining all the time, and racing games just naturally look better in the rain. That's just it's just how racing games tend to work. Yeah, it doesn't look... Yeah, it looks basically as good as Heat, yeah. Yeah, reflections and cars just go really well together. Heat's biggest difference is... doesn't computing reflections intensive? This is not a UE5 game. This is not a UE5 game. Also, a lot of games... This actually does have proper reflections. A lot of games just fake reflections. Baked-in lighting... This is what really helps. Baked-in lighting... You don't have to do everything in real time. You can fake things. I think a lot of devs are very hyper-focused on realistic lighting, whereas gamers don't care about that. At all. Literally at all. People care about their games looking good. If it's not... Oh, the light doesn't bounce exactly the correct... No one fucking cares. As long as it looks good enough and it's not like, oh, why is the light coming from the wrong direction? No one cares.
The lighting info hasn't even been evaluated yet. In UE5.4, the old tiled quad...
What engine... Sorry, what is NFS 2015? What engine is it in? Sort of like CryEngine. Frostbite. It's a Frostbite game. That makes sense. It's a EA game.
Is replaced with compute shaders. These don't need full screen vertices, but are slightly slower to shade by about 0.05 milliseconds.
Mm-hmm.
This change was meant to fix rare bottlenecks caused from off-screen material draws. It does not optimize Nanite's material shading rate, which is where Nanite also fails to be efficient.
Mm-hmm.
Even though Nanite processes materials from the visibility buffer
today's when developers use tricks to optimize.
In the Nanite
I do as well.
Pass, it still shades them as if those materials were applied on objects with an...
But hey, there's so many old games you probably have in your Steam library you've never played before. So you might as well just go give them a try, right? Try those old games you've never touched that you bought 7 years ago on a Steam sale.
Optimized quad overdraw. Sandfall Interactive saved some performance by making sure the slow behavior wasn't applied to the most common material being the floor. Mm-hmm. Which often stands out as a performance killer due to their pixel surface area on the frame and overly texture-blended materials. Nanite performs just slightly better in this scene because 30% of the scene wasn't shaded with Nanite, keeping the Nanite base pass under 2 milliseconds. But remember, geometric inefficiencies get passed into shadows. In the TES Oblivion remake, shadows were a harder problem because of a dynamic sun and horribly unoptimized assets. But in E33, shadows could have been aggressively
This is
cached.
so dry. Well,
Instead,
we're here.
they take 2 milliseconds, which is insane when games like Days Gone or Half-Life Alyx handle shadows in a third of that time and look better doing it.
What the fuck
One of
happened
the reasons why shadows are so slow in E33 is because the developers draw the floors and the shadow maps. Meanwhile, better-looking 8th-gen games excluded them entirely from the main shadow passes to save performance. And even after taking 2 milliseconds, these shadows are rendered at embarrassingly low resolutions, just to counteract Nanite's inefficiencies. Unreal softens these shadows with extreme noise because Epic expects devs to mask it with blurry TAA. Except, as we've discussed, hiding garbage rendering with blurry TAA doesn't actually hide garbage rendering. Now let's quickly dismantle some common nanite lies and defenses for its use. You don't need nanite to fix LED popping. Popping will always exist in some other area, so no pop is a false advantage for choosing nanite. Developers can eliminate LED pop using the research we've compiled.
Well, you can hide pop in, and that's what a good game is going to do. It's going to structure the terrain in a certain way that you don't ever see the pop in happening.
On this channel using various shipped games. Nanite is a stupid approach for generating detail. Micropolygons introduce subpixel aliasing, which demands blurry TAA to fix, which also ends up blurring the very detail you use Nanite for. Nanite introduces a massive cost to players under the guise of infinite detail, but artists and studios can't keep up with that promise. It's too memory and labor intensive to truly fulfill. And even if they could produce such dense content, Nanite's collapse logic can fail to render objects correctly, leading to polygonal edges anyway. It takes a massive amount of effort.
Well, if you go back to the PS1, right, a lot of like PS1 and PS2 games, they would hide pop in, like a lot of old horror games. Silent Hill, great example. You hide the pop in with fog. There's plenty of ways that older games use a lot of trickery to hide things that are happening in the background.
Nanite running semi-non-horrifically slow.
Actually, another good example, Shadow of the Colossus. Shadow of the Colossus, most of the time when you see things in the distance, those are just billboards. There is so much in Shadow of the Colossus that is billboarded. You can notice it if you upscale Shadow of the Colossus nowadays, or you play one of the re-releases. But on the PS2, the resolution was so low that you could not see the billboarding happening.
It's always the biggest chunk of rendering in games, despite Nanite defenders trying to throw Lumen under the bus for UE5 issues. Advocating for higher quality automated LED generation, texture packing, and better baking workflows isn't asking for more work. It's basic sane development practices that benefit studios and consumers. The last issue Nanite defenders refuse to address is the massive cost of shadows when dealing with micropolygon content. This is something we touched on in Alan Wake 2, which wasn't even targeting micropolygon geometry. With optimized LEDs and a vertex shader path, you can easily have tons of shadowed lights in a scene with great performance, and without noise. Now let's get back to E33's rendering. This game looks extra bad because of another TAA-dependent feature I forgot to mention in our first video's original montage. This graphic aspect being textures. Yeah, not even textures are sacred at this point. Specifically virtual textures, which UE5 uses.
Yeah. Look, as much as I love this game, now going back and seeing some of these rendering problems, the game actually did have a lot more than I remembered.
Textures are used to stream in smaller chunks of...
But I will say it's less stuttery than most UE5 games.
Giant textures into VRAM. They almost always look awful because they require stochastic sampling to blend MIP levels unless thin lines of duplicated data is present in VRAM. We're not going too deep on virtual textures in this video, but we're open to hearing in the comment section about use cases where the non-noisy approach could be used to help performance or visuals. But if they're implemented in the way that Unreal does it, they are worthless. UE5's virtual textures also force a full pre-pass. Now some devs claim you can't notice stochastic texture sampling, and that disqualifies them from judging aesthetics. Yet many of these people are leading the industry in its...
Imagine... I was just thinking about something. So do you remember... Okay, did you ever watch Total Biscuit? First question. Very first important first question. Let's see what people say. We're just not going to get a response, are we? No one's going to say anything. The door is mostly flat, right? No way they modeled every notch. Okay, so Total Biscuit, what he would... Oh my god. Okay. I don't know how has nobody here ever watched Total Biscuit? Surely I'm not that fucking old. Okay. Total Biscuit is a old gaming YouTuber, died many years ago. Who is Total Biscuit? Yeah. Okay, you're fucking coping. I know that you're lying. There's no way you use fucking Omega LOL. Anyway, in his videos, he would be known to just stare at rocks, like hyper pixel peep. And I can only imagine what he would have said about the way a lot of these games look nowadays and the way they perform. I wish I got to hear what he would have said about some of these UE5 titles.
Shows. For instance, UE5's motion blur looks terrible even if we use a live console to max out its quality. It still produces this muddy, dithered appearance, while Frostbite's motion blur is cheaper and looks far more natural. We've given a clear vision for graphics, but 99% of studios using Unreal put all their energy and focus on the art direction, music, story, gameplay, yet they completely neglect their responsibility.
That does hide a lot of the problems. If it's good enough, that will hide a lot of the problems.
When it relates to optimized graphics, and just blindly adopt Unreal's Fortnite-driven graphics philosophy instead. But here's the thing. Plugging in another company's graphics for their own project would not be a problem if those graphics didn't look like hideous garbage like Unreal. Epic's engineers consistently show they don't know what looks good. Brian Karras pushed Lambert over Brodie because he couldn't see a difference. But thousands of people can tell when they look at Frostbite games or Frostbite papers that don't use Lambert. The Lambert model is a huge part of that Unreal look that people are sick of because it's so different from realistic behavior. A person's brain is trained to not be fatigued from behavior it's exposed to every day. And while Burly Diffuse is far from perfect, it's progress from Lambert. Karras displayed his low standards again when he pushed his ghosty, blurry TAA as production ready. He showcased his blurry solution in a compressed video with broken bloom and SSR to make it seem like a bigger breakthrough than it actually was. Some developers called out Epic for the misleading comparison, but no voice like Threat Interactive existed at the time. Instead, mainstream reviewers and news outlets were calling the technique incredible. Karras' next big development would be Nanite, the first solution to achieving 1 pixel per triangle. A dream the industry blindly assumed would be progress for graphics, until we showed 1 pixel per triangle detail causes extreme aliasing. Karras again failed to recognize that issue because he lacks the visual reasoning to do so, or because he is too busy slathering his blurry TAA solution on his newest work. Yoyun Abadi, the Epic Games engineer behind TSR, made an overly expensive, blurry, flickery, and rotation-insensitive upscaler and thought it would be good enough to allow inside the industry standard engine. If he knew what looked good, he would not have pushed such a terrible solution into the industry. Daniel Wright is another...
Well, Interactive shits on UE5 so hard, he used the engine so he wants it to be good. No, I get it, right? I do totally get it.
Epic Games engineer in charge of Unreal's lighting.
Temporal effects, bad temporal effects are worse than doing nothing. Yeah, like... I get why people are so annoyed with the direction. Like, I can forgive like bad temporal effects and all this if the games tended to just run smoothly. And that's also a problem you have with these UE5 games. They don't run, like, there are so many of these fucking games where they have stutter issues, and I'm fucking playing through FF7 right now. I just finished Need for Speed Underground 1. I can play a game that is not the most graphically intensive game of all time. But I want it to be fucking smooth. Buttery smooth game. That's all I ask for. I can... Look, if we had to have games look like fucking ass, I just want them to be buttery smooth. That's all I want. That's my only desire.
Development. I have less problems with his work, but while other console games were implementing GI without light maps or ray tracing, he limited GI to landscapes and just expected console developments to throw in a basic skylight with problematic DFAO, layered with a terribly incompetent SSAO he allowed in the engine. It's not surprising that he would end up leading the development of Lumen, a horrible-looking, smeary, unstable, TAA-dependent lighting solution. Tech reviewers have propagated the industry's low standards with videos or articles of praise because their range of satisfaction falls within, is so-and-so game better looking than XPS3 title?
That's the funny thing. That is actually the funny thing. So many of these games actually do look worse than PS3 games if you start looking at them on a technical basis. Like, they might have higher quality textures, higher quality models, but then you look at the final result and it actually just looks like as good or worse than a PS3 game.
Does X game use ray tracing? And what is our interview status with said studio? These reviewers, like Karis, are all the same. They cannot tell the difference between a Lambert-lit mess and a more accurate lighting model, which hints at these reviewers' incompetency to bring proper accountability to the rendering mistakes graphic programmers are making. You know who else has poor standards in graphics?
Does it run better than emulated PS? I think we're going to talk about Witcher soon. He's gonna have like a 4-hour video on Witcher 4 when that comes out. You know it's gonna happen. You know it's gonna happen. PS3 emulation is good if you have AVX 512. I did not know that improved it a lot.
They've only made one semi-realistic game, and it's a blurry, dithered mess that only looks decent when NVIDIA's marketing tech is used. The Unreal Engine look is the dithery, Lambert diffuse, blue skylit garbage AO TAA smeared look. The UE5 look is the Lambert diffuse, flickery lumen, noisy nanite, broken shadow, low FPS look.
I don't mind you, like, I know he's very much not liking the direction of UE for a long time. I do like the look of... I have an issue with UE4 games. UE5 games, I spot a fucking mile away, though. Like a Dragon Infinite World looks arse as soon as you turn on any upscaling and I bet it looks different at low settings. Yeah, like UE4 games, I don't see these problems as noticeably. I think it's because a lot of these issues are a lot more subtle.
Lumen, noisy nanite, broken shadow, low FPS look.
But yeah, flickering, like, a lot of these things you can get used to, but flickering you will notice immediately. The human mind, it's not just with visuals, but with smell as well. You can get used to something that is consistently bad. If you live next to a coal fire, like a coal power plant, you live next to a dump, you live next to a pig farm, you will or like a slaughterhouse, you will very quickly get used to that smell and not be able to smell it. Or you live with cats, right? You very quickly are not able to just smell cat shit and cat piss that someone new walking into your house is going to immediately smell it. But when something is changing, when you notice a difference, that's when it becomes very noticeable. I think that's a big part of the reason why UE5 is immediately something you can spot.
UE5 is not making realistic graphics more accessible. It's making bad graphics the standard. Karis is mentioned thousands of times in rendering papers, but his work is not good enough to reference. When you get Karis wannabes, you get games like Monster Hunter Wilds. Unreal cannot progress with leaders that seem unable to comprehend what is needed for pleasing aesthetics, which in most scenarios is synonymous with realism. So here's a closing message. For years, gamers and developers have advocated for an alternative for Unreal Engine. They have been made, and the industry doesn't care. Games are still being made with Unreal because it's the industry standard. For years, those who have recognized the issues with Unreal have been running away from the problem instead of trying to fix it. The only solution that has had any success in influencing the industry are custom Unreal versions as seen with Embark Studios and the NVIDIA RTX branch. Their games are often used to unfairly defend Unreal's graphical performance by gamers and even Epic's own ignorant programmers. Threat Interactive aims to create a new branch that overhauls the entire graphics pipeline with our own superior vision for graphics.
Good luck.
Outlined by our channel's content.
Good luck.
Other studios have built custom graphics in Unreal, but sadly many of these studios rarely share out-of-the-box working code for other studios to use. On the other hand, it's our mission to make sure our graphics development is easily accessible for other studios, in the same fashion as the NVIDIA RTX branch. Our plans are clear and the intent is there. But at this point, we lack the funding to initiate such ambitious development.
Back in the day of no AA, you had flickering around edges and that was it. Yeah. If you see like a power line that's flickering, yeah. Since now they push everything into being actual geometry with nanite instead of being mipmap textures. The issues are way worse since TEA isn't stable, so now you don't just get edge flickering, but all of the geometry. Yeah, right.
Element. As well funded as Epic is, they do not have the incentive to care about Unreal's inefficiencies when they receive millions of dollars from royalties from games that look and perform as badly as this one does. They do not consider basic optimizations and features supported by dozens of other engines to be worth integrating in UE5. Epic will only focus on making sure they stay in headlines with features nobody will actually use. And the biggest reason why they won't fix the issues we discuss as of now is because most of their graphic engineers cannot tell the difference between mediocrity and actual progress in graphics. So here's how you can help us. Your subscription directly raises Epic Games' damage control cost and builds the market value for real optimization. Our Patreon allows viewers to directly support these videos and our efforts while getting access to frame-extracted comparison images. We're hoping with enough members we can introduce high-stake raffle prizes like consoles and high-end PC hardware. But if you can't join our Patreon, then we greatly appreciate it if you, our viewers, could share this video 3 times on any of these platforms. This will boost our YouTube revenue to keep our channel sustainable, and it also helps our message about Unreal get out there so that it becomes more mainstream knowledge. If you're new to this channel and felt confused on some graphic terminology, watch our videos in order as they slowly explain the rendering concepts and marketing tactics used in the graphic.
What is Rebirth in? It'll probably be UE5, but yeah, what is Rebirth in? FF7 Rebirth. I don't know if that's still a UE4 game or it's UE5. I think it's UE5? No, that's still UE4. But they have swapped to UE5 internally, so depends on when it happened. No, you're thinking of Luminous, and which they stopped using now for new games. What was the last Luminous game that came out? Let's find out. Games. Oh. What a legacy. What a fucking legacy Luminous has. Holy shit. I will say, both these games run amazingly and graphically look amazing. It's just they're both shit. Which is not a problem. Which is not a problem with the engine. That's a problem with the developers.
Industry. We have many videos planned out to showcase more techniques we think are good enough for modern games, including our own. It is a time-consuming process to produce our videos, so a big thank you to all of our viewers, subscribers, and especially our Patreon members, and those of you who have donated with super thanks. Until our next video.
Well, that was a Thread Interactive video. We've not seen one of those in a while. I do think the art style does really carry games like E33. E33 looks visually amazing if you're not the kind of person who is noticing UE5 artifacting. But if you do, it's at least less stuttery than a lot of other UE5 games. So I'll give it that. That is certainly a nice difference. I think we'll check out one more and then we'll head out from there. Where's my Discord window? Wukong, yeah, exactly. Wukong also had a nice art style, even though it was a bit of a mess performance-wise.